Welcome in. Thanks for joining us. I'll give folks a few seconds to join in before we get started. And we had several in the waiting room. All right, that number looks like we have at least covered everyone that was in the waiting room. So we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar about the Kansas Fights Addiction 2024 RFP3, which is focused on the areas of treatment, recovery, harm reduction, and linkages to care. We will start with a few presentations. So Chris Teeters with the Attorney General's Office will start us off, and then I will give a quick overview of the application itself. And then Kelly Mark will provide an overview of the actual system and the grants management system, and then we will do question and answer at the end. So feel free to add your questions into the either the webinar chat or the question and answer pod. Either one is fine. And Alyssa will be monitoring those, and she'll help facilitate that process for us when we get to the question and answer period after Kelly presents her slides. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started, and I will pass it over to Chris to give us an introduction of the opioid settlements.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Teeters. I am an Assistant Attorney General with the Office of the Kansas Attorney General. I've been here for about 5 years, and I am the primary attorney working on the opioid litigation and opioid settlement project from the AGO. You all are probably familiar with this project, but just in case you aren't, I'll give you a quick overview. Starting in 2019, Kansas started litigation against a variety of different opioid manufacturers, distributors, retailers, marketers, and other people in the industry. And to date, we have reached settlements with a variety of different parties, totaling approximately $340 million owed to the state. That money's going to be paid out over approximately 16 more years. So our last payment at this point is anticipated in 2038. And that money is largely set aside for opioid and substance use disorder, to abate opioid and substance use disorder. Under the statutes, and excuse me, you may see me have to turn my camera on and off like that because my computer likes to give me problems. So under the settlements, we have to spend that money on opioid and substance use disorder, and there is a variety of different ways we can do that. But Kansas adopted the Kansas Fights Addiction Act to give us specific guidance to ensure those dollars are used for appropriate purposes and to make certain we stay compliant with various settlement agreements, bankruptcy orders, and court orders that govern this massive settlement project. So under the Kansas Fights Addiction Act, 75% of the money that the state receives is going to be made available through grant programs like the one we're here to talk about today, overseen by the Kansas Fights Addiction Grant Review Board. Because there is a lot of money, but not an infinite amount of money, these projects are going to likely be competitive every time that there is a new grant program made available. And so we just want to make certain everybody is aware that these programs are competitive. There are going to be more applicants than there are dollars available, but there will be dollars available for a good number of years. The other thing that I want to make certain everyone is aware of is that in Kansas, there are 205 cities and counties that are also receiving direct money out of the Kansas Fights Addiction Act's appropriations. 25% of money that we get as part of the opioid settlement goes towards participating cities and counties. And those cities and counties also have to spend their money on opioid and substance use disorder, abating opioid and substance use disorders. And so what that means is that if you don't receive a grant as part of this program, you should check to see if the regions that you're in, areas that you're in, are in participating cities and counties, and if those cities and counties have money available for your projects as well. So there's multiple sources of funding that is available for everybody here. And just to put a quick plug in, next week, we anticipate publishing our initial report on city and county receipts and expenditures of opioid settlement dollars. So do look for that. There should be some press releases about that. So just keep an eye out for that information so you can figure out which counties and cities are participating and how much money they've got available to them, so that you know who to go contact as other sources of funding for opioid and substance use disorder. The last thing I wanted to flag for everybody is, because this is a state-run program, and you'll see this throughout the materials, the application materials, and you'll hear us talk about this today, as well as every time we talk about these sorts of applications. Your records and anything that you submit to Sunflower and to the board may become open records subject to the Kansas Open Records Act. We just want to make certain people are aware of that. They don't get caught off guard. All successful grant recipient applications are open records, but just because of the way that this is an open process, your records may be subject to open records and discussed in open meetings. So just be cognizant of that as you are making application decisions and as you're making decisions about what to put into your applications. Finally, I want to let everybody know that if you have questions that are not answered as part of this presentation, you are always free to reach out to the Attorney General's office. My email address will be in the chat here in just a moment, but you're always free to reach out to Sunflower with questions about the particular RFPs. And if you just have broader opioid settlement questions that you want addressed, please feel free to reach out to me. I know I recognize a number of names on this list, and I know a number of you have called me or emailed me in the past. I hope that you can all agree that I'm fairly friendly and open and willing to talk about all this. So I've been doing this for 5 years. I'll probably be doing for many years more. So I'm really happy to talk with anybody if you've got any questions. With that, I will leave this to the actual meat of this presentation and turn this back over to Krista.
Great, thanks, Chris. All right, so as I mentioned, I will go over the RFP itself, and for many of you, I'm sure you saw the RFPs last year. These RFPs this year will look very similar to the ones last year, with just some minor tweaks and lessons learned from the first time around, so most of it should look familiar to you. So just to get started off with our key dates, the confirmation of intent is due July 12th. It's just a quick 5-question survey that should take you about 2 minutes or less. It's really just to give us an idea of how many applications to expect. That helps us plan for how many reviewers we will need for the application review process. So it's really just a simple, you're interested in maybe those areas that you might be interested in applying, but nothing that will take you more than a couple of minutes to do. The application itself is due August 2nd, and then we anticipate that funding notifications will be on or before November 22nd. Eligibility is limited to nonprofit entities and units of state or local government that provide services in Kansas for the purpose of preventing, reducing, treating, or otherwise abating or remediating substance use disorder. That's all of our legal language you see in our KFA Act. And then also organizations that have or will release their legal claims against the covered, from covered conduct against each of the defendants that are required by our opioid litigation. That's also the same as last year, so shouldn't be new information for many of you. The total anticipated funding available for this RFP will be $6 million total, with award ceilings per individual award at $300,000. So that's increased this year. This is, again, a short-term approach to getting funds into the communities to meet those immediate needs while we build the comprehensive needs assessment, which hopefully many, if not all of you, have heard about. And if you want to get involved in, please check out our website. That's happening right now. We're building this comprehensive needs assessment across all the disciplines and lifespan to hopefully inform the future of KFA funding. So these 2 RFPs this year, again, are just short-term approaches to start getting money out the door so that communities are not waiting for the results of the needs assessment to get funding. And thus these are, again, just 12-month short-term projects. And then all of the future funding awards and grant opportunities will be based on the results of the needs assessment. RFP4, which is going to be released August 5th, will cover the areas of prevention, providers and health systems, and public safety and first responders, similar to what we did last year. And then the ceiling for those individual grants will be different. It will be $200,000 again, like it was last year, and they're anticipating awarding up to $4 million for that. So RFP3, this current one that's open right now, is focused on the three priority or the four priority areas of treatment, recovery, harm reduction, and linkages to care. These priority areas come from the Kansas Prescription Drug and Opioid Advisory Committee's strategic plan. That's our current 5-year strategic plan for this topic, which included input from public professionals, subject matter experts, and over 55 different organizations participating in the committee. And the priority areas of the state plan are split into really 6 categories, but we at the KFA board has split it out into 7 categories. So in the state plan, treatment and recovery are linked together. So they have 6 categories, but our RFPs have 7 categories. So we have treatment, recovery, harm reduction, and linkages to care that you see here. And then the last 3 are the prevention, providers and health systems, and public safety and first responders. So all those priority areas and the strategies within come from our state plan from the Kansas Prescription Drug and Opioid Advisory Committee. These are the current allowable strategies under the RFP3. They're listed on pages 3 and 4 of the RFP. The majority of these strategies are the same as they were last year, with some minor tweaks, just some language changes to some clarifying language here and there. And then we had a few added under harm reduction, which are number 3 there with fentanyl test strips distribution, number 4, which is expanding access to low barrier wraparound and peer supports, and number 5 with leave behind programming for at-risk populations. And so those were the new strategies. The rest are basically the same of what they were last year. So they should look familiar to many of you. So the submission process, all applications must be submitted through our grants management system, which is called Flux, by 5 o'clock on August 2nd. Kelly's going to show you what that all looks like on the next set of the next presentation that she does. The RFP lists all of the application narrative questions, so you can go ahead and build your application in Word if you'd like, so that you can copy and paste into the online application. And that way you can save your responses. If you build directly into the application, you can also save, but just in case, if you lose internet or anything, you don't want to lose any of your work, you might want to start in Word. So that's why our RFPs are in Word format. So you can go ahead and start your application that way if you prefer. But if you do build it in the application online, or just in general, when you are putting in information into the application, make sure you're saving often so you don't lose anything. And then also make sure that you're registering in the grants management system at least 2 to 3 days prior to the deadline. That gives Kelly enough time to go through all the processes of approving a registration in the system. And so we need some extra time there. There are some priority elements that the board has decided to give to applications. And so you see them here. They've wanted to put these considerations into practice based on conversations they've had, but also informed by the Kansas Fights Addiction Act, other best practices, and overarching areas of needs that have been identified to impact all of the areas of work. You'll notice in this RFP that there are an additional 10 points that are optional that are available this year, and they're related to these priority elements, making the highest possible score for any application 110. Addressing these priority elements, it's not required, but it also won't reduce your score if not addressed. It's just in organizations that are addressing some of these priority elements could get up to 10 additional points, but it doesn't hinder a score if they're not addressed. So these priority elements are given to applicants that are not otherwise seeking or receiving funds from opioid litigation, that expand availability of certified SUD treatment programs, that propose science and data-driven as well as new and innovative approaches. We know that this is a short-term funding opportunity, so we don't expect grantees to completely start from scratch to build something new, but rather add on to or expand upon or propose innovative approaches to existing work, because we know it's short-term, so something brand new is probably not the best approach. Those that have not received KFA funding previously are also priority elements. Organizations that have an operating budget of 500,000 or less, providing services in counties that are identified as highest risk. Those are listed in the RFP2. You can see the link to find those counties. And then those that propose strategies that address overarching areas of need, including things like partner collaboration and attempts to avoid any duplication of efforts, integrated care within SUD organizations, recovery housing, expanding drug courts, decreasing stigma, and behavioral health workforce initiatives. So those are all the pieces that might go into those additional 10 points for that application. So with grantee reporting, grantees will be required to submit a 6-month progress report and financial report, as well as a final report for both of those. So there'll just be 2 reporting periods where you'll have a progress report and a financial report due at 6 months, and then upon completion of the grant. And those also will be completed within the grants management system, where you're also filling out the application. So you'll be familiar with that. Those reports will likely include things on how funds were spent on approved uses, services provided, numbers served, aggregated data on those served, and then things like impact, successes, and challenges, pretty basic progress reporting indicators. Funding exclusions include things like supplantation of existing funding. So by supplanting, we mean not to replace existing funding, but applicants can choose to expand or enhance existing work, just not replacing or supplanting that work. Non-abatement strategies, opioid litigation expenses, and campaign contributions. Those are the exclusions for the funding. Now we're going to go over the actual application components. A full overview of the application narrative questions, as I mentioned, are included within the RFP, and they start on page 9. In addition to the online application fields, applicants must also upload relevant required forms, such as a completed budget and budget narrative using the template that's provided within the system. Kelly will show you how to find that. Nonprofits must upload their IRS 990 or 990N, or nonprofits without a 990, such as churches, will need to submit a W-9 with their EIN in there. A copy of current financial statements, which include a statement of activities year to date and a statement of financial position, as well as a copy of the most recent audit if available. Units of government must upload their W-9 with EIN, a copy of their most recent financials, preferably no older than 6 months, a copy or a link to the most recent audit if available, and preferably no older than 2 years if it is available. And then upon award, selected grantees will be required to complete a letter of agreement, an ACH electronic payment processing form, so that all payments will be processed electronically, and no paper checks will be sent out or anything like that for efficiency's sake. And then a signed agreement releasing the organization's right to litigation of entities associated with these opioid settlements. All application narrative questions are included on pages 11 to 14. As well as the associated scoring system. You can see how many points are available per section. And then also within the RFP, we've linked to the scoring matrix that the reviewers will use. So you'll be able to see how applications will be scored by section as well. The last 2 pages of the RFP include some initial frequently asked questions that we're anticipating or that we got last year. As more questions arise, we will update the frequently asked questions, and we will update those on our Sunflower website, the Kansas Fights Addiction webpage on our Sunflower Foundation website. So if you want to go back and look at that, they'll be updated as more questions come in. Just a couple that we got asked a lot last year. Any applicant may apply for as many of the priority areas or strategies included in the RFP as they desire. However, of course, the budget ceiling will remain the same per grant application, and applicants may also apply for both RFPs if they would like to. And at this time, we've also anticipated we're going to get some questions about for-profits, as they are now eligible entities by the legislative action that happened this session. However, since it was just updated, we're still working on the KFA board is still working on establishing processes to make sure that this happens, and but it won't occur in time for these RFPs, but that's still in process. And so hopefully more to come on what funding for profits will look like. It's just not quite there just yet. And then also another note from the KFA board, they're interested in if organizations are proposing to hire new full-time positions, they'd like to know kind of how confident the organization is in timely hiring of those positions and how hiring may or may not impact the timeline, as well as how those positions will be sustained. So when you're writing your application, make sure to pay attention to those kind of things when proposing new full-time positions. And with that, I will pass it off to Kelly, who's going to walk you through the system and the application and our forms.
Thanks, Krista. Hi, guys. Kelly Mark, the Grant Finance Manager at the Sunflower Foundation. I saw lots of familiar names in the participants, so hello, and hello to everyone new. Okay, everything you do for your KFA grant is going to be done in Flux, which is our grants management system. So I'm going to share my screen here in a minute, and I'm just going to show you how to get to Flux, how to register, how to log in, how to find your application, all that good stuff. All right, sharing my screen. Look good, Krista? Okay, this is the Sunflower Foundation website. So you can see that's located at sunflowerfoundation.org. If you type that into your browser, you will come to our website, and there is a Kansas Fights Addiction page. So if you click on that, you are going to get a lot of the information that Krista just told you. It's going to talk about these RFPs. You can download the full RFPs there, so you can have those in front of you. You can have the application questions. KFA annual reports available there. So lots of information on the KFA page. There is also some information down here about Flux. There's a video you can watch that offers technical assistance on Flux. There's a PDF guide that you can download, and you can also log into Flux here. But I'm going to show you another way as well. So if we go back to our home page, we've got grantee login up here on the top. And I wanted to show you this way because there is a Sunflower Foundation portal and there is a KFA portal. If you are a current or a past Sunflower Foundation grantee, you have to register again in Flux separately under the KFA portal. These are two separate instances of Flux. If you inadvertently register in Sunflower, I will send you a note and say, hey, you need to register over here at KFA, and send you the link. But there are two different places there, so make sure you click on the KFA portal. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that so you can see where it takes you. This is the Flux login page, and this is also where you're going to register if you're brand new. So if you were a grantee of KFA last year, you already have a Flux login. You're going to use the same one. You would just put your username and your password in here and sign in just like you did last year, or you're still doing for your reports and your payments and things like that. If you forgot your password, there is a forgot password link. If you're having trouble logging in and the forget password button isn't working for you, or you just can't seem to get logged in, just email me and I will help you get logged in. If you are brand new, you need to create an account so that you can get a login. So you're going to click this Create an Account Now button. And that is going to open up this registration page. Information about your organization, and it also asks for information about the primary contact for this grant. Those are the two sections of information you need to fill out. I will say, please be careful when you're filling out the registration form that your information is accurate. This is all the information we have on your organization. So if we need to get a hold of you, if we need to send you anything, we're getting everything from this form. So please be careful that you are entering things in accurately. Use your organization's legal name. So the name that's going to show up on your 990 or your W-9, please register with your legal name. Even if you have a DBA, go ahead and register with that legal name and include the DBA. Another field that's really important is your tax ID number. That is what we use to make sure you're eligible for the grant. So please make sure that you enter your tax ID form or your tax ID number. You will probably get an error if you don't enter it, or if you don't enter it in the correct format. But just make sure that you are paying attention to that field. And then the primary contact information, that person will be listed as the primary contact on the grant. And then when you get into the application, you will have an opportunity to add a few more contacts, so more than one person can have access to the grant. Okay, so after you fill out all of that information, you are going to hit Submit Request. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to submit a blank request. But when you hit Submit Request, a little pop-up is going to come up that says, thanks for registering. It's going to have the Flux logo, and then that will submit your registration into Flux to me. I will look at your registration, ensure that we have the information that we need, ensure that your organization is eligible to apply, If all looks good, I'll accept your registration and you will get an email from Flux with your username and a token link to set your password. If I have any questions about your registration, if you're an ineligible organization or you're missing something, I will reach out to you by email. The email that's provided in the form is the one I'll email and ask additional questions or get information from you. Okay, so fill out your registration form. You've submitted your request. You get an email from Flux with your username. When you log in on that screen that we were just on, it takes you to our grantee portal, which is this screen right here. Krista, did that change to the grantee portal or do I need to reshare?
Oh, we're seeing the portal. You're right.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. There is some helpful information here at the top. It's got the Flux technical assistance resources. So there's a link to the video there, as well as that PDF Flux guide you can download. There's also a video about how to find the bank account information form. When Krista talked about all your grant payments are going to go out via ACH, we're going to need that bank account information form filled out in the beginning so that we can get those payments set up for you. But the first thing you're going to want to do when you come into the portal is you're going to want to start a new application. And that is right here at the top. All of your action buttons for this portal are on the left-hand side, and we're going to go through several of them. But the first one you're going to need is the Start an Application button. So when you click on that, you get a little bit of information, tells you this is RFP3. These are the strategies it's covering. It opened on June 17th. It is going to close on August 2nd. And then you click this green button to actually open that application. Oops, I've been logged in too long. Bear with me while I go back in there. Or I hadn't. If you have Flux open and you don't interact with it for a certain amount of time, it will log you out like that, which is what just happened to me. Sorry if you can hear the doorbell ringing. Somebody is ringing our doorbell. All right. Did that go back to the portal, Krista? Okay. Okay, so start an application, click the green button. This is the application. It's going to pop up for you. When it opens, it is going to be in a format that you can go ahead and start interacting with. So the primary contact, that's going to be the person that filled out the registration form. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 options to put in other people. So the person that's going to be your primary signatory, the person that's going to be the financial contact on the grant, and then you can have a couple of related users so other people can have access to the application and if you're funded the grant after that. These are the application questions, project title, start date. So you guys are used to this. Here's the strategies that you pick. There is a link also to a Word form of the application on this form. So you can download it from here.
Elizabeth Berger available today?
So you can download it from here or you can get it from the RFP like Krista mentioned. Okay, so you come in here, you copy and paste your answers in the application or you fill them out in Flux if you like. I will stress again, as Krista said, Flux doesn't auto-save. So as long as you're hitting the save button, you're good. But if you were to happen to enter your whole application in here and you lost internet and it went down and you didn't save, it would be gone. Flux does not auto-save for you. So please hit save often to make sure it is keeping that stuff for you. Dun, dun, dun. So you've entered your whole application. Okay, here is the upload documents that Krista talked about. Here is the template for the budget workbook. I'm going to open that. We're going to talk about it in a minute. We also have a document that is capital guidance form. So capital expenses are can be eligible for KFA funds, but I'll explain when we open the budget workbook the information that you need to provide if you are going to request capital items on your KFA grant application. So you would upload your budget workbook here with this green plus sign. You'd click on this link to open it, fill it out, and then you're going to upload it here. Current financial statements, that is an income statement and a balance sheet that are no more than 6 months old. You are going to upload those with that green plus sign. Your financial audit, if you have one. If your organization has a financial audit, we need the most recent one. You would upload that with that green plus sign. And then your Form 990 or your W-9, if you do not file a Form 990, would be uploaded with that. When you use these plus signs, that is going to put your documents in the right place. We also have some grantee project documents. There's a plus sign there, and organization documents. There's a plus sign there. All of this financial information goes into your organization documents. That's because it follows your organization from application to application, so you don't have to upload them every time. If you accidentally put your uploads, your financial uploads in grantee project documents, it's not going to show that you've uploaded them. So you're getting an error when you try to submit your application. That's why it's important to use these plus signs, because it will put your documents in the correct place. Grantee project documents is for things like a list of your board of directors or support letters. None of that stuff is required with this grant, but that is where you would put it if you had that stuff and you wanted to upload it. One thing that you will put in grantee project documents is if you are asking for capital expenses on your budget, you have to submit bids from contractors with those, and you would upload those bids in that grantee project documents. Okay, I am going to go ahead and open the budget workbook so we can look at that. It is very similar to last year. Those of you that are repeat customers, it is very similar to last year. Okay. Can you see that, Krista, or do I need to reshare? You can see it? Wow, it's doing good today. I think we just beefed up the instructions a little bit for you from the last year's. It has the same tabs. We've got the instructions as the first one, the summary budget form, the budget narrative form, the capital form, and then we've got a tips and tricks page, and then we have an example of the budget narrative for you. So I think we just beefed up our examples, our instructions. The rest of the form is pretty much the same. But on your summary budget form, this is your line item budget that most of you are used to filling out for grant applications. Your applicant name, the duration of the project should not exceed 12 months. These are 12-month grants. Specific project title. So please don't just put RFP3 or the title of the RFP. It helps us a lot if you really tell us the specific name of your project. So please use that box for that. You can see here for this RFP3, which is the treatment, recovery, harm reduction, and linkages to care, the ceiling is $300,000. So be aware of that. If you have money from other sources, or if your organization is also committing separate funds to your project, we've got a place for you to put those dollar amounts, and that will all auto-calculate to your total project budget. For your total KFA funds budget, that it's titled total KFA funds budget because that is the only thing we need details on. Even if you are using money from other sources and your organization is chipping in some dollars too, if you're asking for $300,000 from KFA, that's all we want to know the details on. The money you are specifically asking for from KFA is the dollars that's going to be broken down in this line item budget. So you would enter that here. And it's going to autofill, I believe, from this cell right here, what you enter in the total KFA funds requested. So the normal categories, salaries, benefits, a note on benefits, they cannot exceed 25% of your total salary ask. Contractual supplies, transportation, equipment, there is the capital line item. There's a couple of extra steps you are going to need to do if you ask for capital, and we'll go over those in the next few sheets. Any miscellaneous expenses that don't fall in those other categories. You are allowed indirect expenses for KFA, but that is limited to 10% of your total budget, so be aware of that. We've got some notes down here about capital that I'm going to talk about as I move on through these forms. So your budget narrative form, your amounts for each category is going to automatically pull over from your summary budget. So those will be filled out for you. These blue lines are for breaking down those costs. So you asked for $20,000 in salary. Tell us how that $20,000 is going to be spent. On the narrative example, you'll be able to see some examples of how you can do that. We do have on each category, we have a bigger box that you can tell us additional details if you need to. For instance, as Krista was talking about on if you are asking for salaries, tell us if it's a new position or existing position. If it is a new position, how easy do you think it's going to be to hire that? Is that position reimbursable? Things like that. Okay. I will note there is also a place for capital on the budget narrative. Even though you don't have to explain it here because you're going to on the next form, there is a spot where your capital total, if you have it on the budget summary, will flow over. These cells that are green will remain green as long as all the calculations add up. If you put something in wrong and it isn't adding up to what flowed over from the budget summary, these cells will turn red to let you know, hey, you need to check that again. Your calculations aren't adding up. All right, this is the capital budget form. It's going to autofill from the budget summary as well, but this is where you give us a lot more details on the capital that you're requesting. So we need a detailed description of the items or the expenditures. We need to know how is that's going to help you do your project strategies. We need to know about any other funding sources, how it's going to be, how the item will be sustained and maintained after the end of the grant. So if you're purchasing a vehicle or something like that, how are you going to pay for maintenance and things after the grant ends? And then there is a chance that if you ask for capital and the KFA board may come back to you with more questions as they're reviewing the applications. So be aware of that. And as I said, again, bids are required for any capital items. So you will upload those with your budget narrative in the grantee project documents. Okay, summary budget tips is just like per line. Here's some tips and tricks and information that we talked about already, such as benefits can't exceed 25%. Total expenses is what your everything's gonna add up to. Total net project, the summary budget is gonna auto calculate for you. So if you are out of whack on that, your total net project is not going to equal 0. If you are asking for less in your line items and you ask for total funding, it's going to let you know that that's out of whack. And then we do have that narrative example here that just shows some ways that you could fill out this narrative. Hopefully it will answer questions if you have them. But if you have specific questions about the budget workbook, any questions at all, please reach out to me. I'll work with you to get that filled out. When you submit it, we will be reviewing these budgets. So if there is any issues with them, if I have any questions, if your figures don't add up, I will be reaching out to you as well. So during the application process, when the application is open, I would say keep an eye out for any emails from me. Because if I am emailing you, it means I have a question or there's a problem with your application. Okay, I'm going to close that. Did we go back to the application, Krista? Okay. So once you have totally filled out your application and you've uploaded everything you need to upload, you are going to save and close. You also do this anytime you're coming and going out of your application. Make sure you save and close. Sometimes Flux is a little bit slow. Okay. It will, when you are saved and closed, your submit button will show up. That submit button will not show up when your application is in edit mode. It will only show up when you're saved and closed. To open your application up again so that you can get in there and edit it, the edit button is right up there in the upper right-hand corner. And when you're done and you are ready and your application is good, you hit that submit button. You will get a flash on the screen that says your application was submitted, or you're going to get a red error message that says it wasn't submitted. But even if you are certain that you submitted your application, please, please, please come back into the grantee portal before the application closes and ensure that your application is in here in submitted requests. When you start an application, it's going to show up in pending requests. See that little orange one that just showed up meant, oh, you've got a new request in here. So when you're working on your application, it will be in pending requests. If you go and start an application and you have to log out for a while, go gather some more information, you can only work on it for a certain amount of time, and you save and close and you leave, this is how you get to it again. You hit pending requests. If you start another application, it's going to start a whole new brand new application for you. And you'll probably email me and be like, where'd all my stuff go? My application is blank and I had it half done. And I'll email back and I'll say, it's okay. Don't panic. It's here in pending requests. And we can delete those if you make a mistake. So don't worry about that. But they will be in pending requests and you will always be able to go into and out of your application as long as you save and close. So when you submit, after you hit that green submit button, this pending request will move to submitted requests. So if you are certain you have submitted your application, come in here and check. And if you have nothing in submitted requests, then it did not submit successfully. I'm putting emphasis on this because I have seen some real horror stories where people did not check and it was after the application closed and their application was sitting there finished and not submitted. And there isn't anything I can do about it at that point. So please you can even email me and say, Kelly, can you please check and make sure my application is submitted? And I will check and I will let you know if it is or not. Okay, so that is pretty much the application process. If you are awarded in a grant, the grantee portal will be your friend from that point forward. You will be able to find your reports that are due. You will be able to find your scheduled payments. You will be able to find payments that have been paid. You will be able to find all the people that have access to your grant. So it's a wealth of information for you. But as far as submitting, that's pretty much all you need to know. Any questions at all, please reach out to me. I will be here on the phone on the last day, ready to help you get submitted if you're having problems. So don't panic. We'll get you through it. Just reach out to me with any questions. And Chris, I think that's it unless I forgot anything.
Not that I can think of. Thanks, Kelly. All right, we'll move into the Q&A. Alyssa, what have we got coming in?
So we have a few questions in here. So one of the first questions is.
And Alyssa, you're really quiet again. You might be connected to the wrong microphone.
Of course. Okay. How's that? Better?
I can read these questions off while Alyssa's maybe getting that microphone
figure it out.
fixed. So the first question was, would operating funds be eligible for, I believe this RFP, if a financial loss can be shown? The cautions on, this is about the cautions on supplanting and anti-supplantation or replacement language.
Yeah, so I think that kind of goes towards like personnel. If there are staff for the project, they obviously can be written in, and there's indirect costs, but they're not intended to be like core operating grants where it's only focused on operating funds, but something that's specific to the need for the project. Chris, would you add anything to that answer?
No, I think that makes sense. This might be one of those questions that is more outside of my scope on knowing exactly how these organizations are run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and probably a case-by-case basis, I would guess. So feel free to reach out if you have additional questions on that.
Yeah, and if that situation were to come up after you received a grant, I think that's one of the things that we would encourage you to reach out to Sunflower, reach out to the AG's office so that we can work in that particular case to make certain you're staying compliant with the terms of your grant.
Great, thanks. And I think I saw one too, and I answered it, but just so that other people are aware if they missed it, if this is going to be recorded, yes, it's recorded. I think you all, since you registered, should receive the link to the recording automatically, but also it will be on our website with the slides will also be uploaded on our website, so you'll be able to see those there. And Alyssa, do you want to test?
Yes. Can you?
There we are.
Okay. There we are. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Chris. So another question we have here, if we are a county hospital looking to apply, is it more appropriate to apply under this RFP or wait until the RFP comes out specific to hospitals, first responders, etc.?
Yeah, I think that one would probably go back to kind of the strategies that you're hoping to achieve. Most of the healthcare specific ones are under the second one, and same thing with first responders. But if there is something relevant to the project that you want to implement in this first RFP, you could easily apply for both. Completely up to you there.
Perfect. So this might be more targeted towards Kelly. Can an organization have more than one user on Flux?
They can. You can have up to your primary contact, your primary signatory, your financial contact, and then 2 additional users can have access in Flux. And you'll be able to fill out all those names when you're filling out the application. You'll be able to give them all access. If you need more than that, that's all you can have. So you'll have to swap out.
Thank you. So Krista, this question's a little bit about what you shared earlier. I'd like to make sure I understand something Krista mentioned. Our submission is focused on prevention and linkages to care. Might it make more sense for us to submit to both RFP3 and RFP4, or is it better to submit to one of those?
Yeah, similar probably response to the other one. I think it sounds like it would be relevant to both RFPs. So again, completely up to you which you would like to prefer to apply for one or both. Completely up to you. Yeah. And if it's the same application for both, that's also perfectly fine if it's relevant to both RFPs.
Next question. So award announcement is planned for November for this RFP. Question is, what is the start date if awarded?
Yeah, so after the awards are announced on or before November 22nd, we will start behind the scenes building your letter of agreement and sending those over to you. And so actual start date will depend on when that agreement's actually signed and finalized. So not everybody will be on the exact same timeline. Hopefully most will be around the same time, but they'll start on the day that you signed it. Right, Kelly, anything to add there?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is we like to start agreements on the first of a month. Because we make your payments on the last day of the month, and it helps us if you're in the middle of the month, it's just not as easy to make sure your payments are going out. So it may be you may not all be in the same month, but as you're filling out your applications and you're putting your project period in there, make sure you put the first of a month, like January 1st or February 1st or something like that.
Okay, thank you on that one. So this question's more targeted about actually answers to questions for the application. So regarding the recommendation to answer questions in about 3 paragraphs, is that for each section for each text box on the application? Curious to kind of, I guess, get some clarification on that.
Yeah, so it would be per text box. And it's still, you're not limited to the 3 paragraphs. If it takes more to describe it or if it takes less, that's perfectly fine. But we're, as a general recommendation, per text box there.
Okay, so there's a question here to get Kelly's information. We will definitely add that so you can be able to contact her directly.
You put that
Next,
in the chat.
Next question. If requesting to purchase a vehicle, how many bids are required?
That's a good question. Kelly, as you're, of course, typing your email into the chat.
I think I might have said that. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Um,
If they want to purchase a vehicle, how many bids are required?
I would say only 1 bid would be required. If we would encourage you to shop around and try to find the best deal you can, but you don't have to upload 3 different bids. You can find the best deal for you and then just upload that one.
Okay, and so the next question, can an organization submit more than one application?
Yep, they can submit as many as they'd like.
And then
Let's
last
say a note
question.
on that. Sorry,
Oh,
Alyssa,
yes.
I don't want to interrupt you, but once your organization is in flux, your organization is in flux. So if you are submitting multiple applications, you do so on the same login. You just hit that start an application button twice. And you can have different folks in the same organization that if these people have already, registered and have their application going, this person over in this arm of your organization wants to apply too, they don't need to re-register. They just need to be added to your organization's account. So if somebody fills out a registration and I see that an organization is already in there, I'll reject that registration and I'll send you an email that says, hey, your organization already has an account. I'm just going to add you to it. Here's your login information.
Yeah, and I will add too, if you make sure that you're uploading you're starting a new application when you're responding for a separate application, making sure that you're not copying and pasting over the same application. We've had that happen before where they thought they were submitting multiple applications, where they were only going into the one and copying and pasting. So just make sure that you started a brand new one each time.
And that will show 2 in your pending requests. It'll show 2. So
Okay, so next question, is this grant paid out monthly as reimbursements?
you want to talk about that, Krista, or do you want me to?
You can.
Okay. We don't necessarily do monthly payments. We will structure your payment schedule if you are awarded based on the amount of funds that you are asking for. We will separate those payments over the course of the grant. I will tell you that your last payment will come after the grant has closed. So your grant will close, you will have 30 days to do your final report, and then 30 days after that, you'll get your last payment. It'll be a smaller payment, probably 5 or 10% of your total grant. But so that last payment definitely is on a reimbursement basis. The rest of the payments will just be spread evenly across your grant. If we notice, like at your first progress report, that you are not spending your funds down very quickly, we'll probably reach out to you and say, hey, do you want us to lay off the payments for a while so you don't get too much money built up? But yeah, so we're flexible on your payment schedule. We will send you one with your agreement. If it doesn't work for you, reach out to us. We'll talk about it. They're generally just evenly split across the grant, but definitely that last one is reimbursable. Or reimbursement basis.
Awesome. And then just last question here is about when the release date for RFP4 is.
Yeah, so RFP4 is released on August 5th. So again, that's on prevention, providers and health systems, and public safety and first responders. And I will note there are treatment related strategies under the providers and health systems, and those are more targeted towards like health systems and healthcare entities, not so much a treatment entity applying for healthcare systems. So it's more targeted to the healthcare field, but they do have like expanding MAT and MOUD strategies, but that's targeted more toward healthcare. And then so this RFP closes August 2nd, and that's a Friday. So the following Monday is when the next RFP will open. It's intended to keep it clean in the Flux system so that people aren't seeing 2 different types of application and whatnot, just to make it a little bit simpler. So, and any other, I see some questions.
Yes, as I say, we have some more questions coming in. So will harm reduction be included in RFP4 as well?
No, so RFP4 is separate priority areas. That's why there's 2 separate RFPs, is just to split up the number of strategies allowable. So we went with more direct service kind of strategies under the treatment, recovery, harm reduction, and linkages to care, this RFP3, and then RFP4 is the more not all direct service related. So we've got prevention, providers and health systems, and public safety and first responders. So they kind of fit together a little bit better than more direct services. So that's just how they were split into the 2 RFPs, but the priority areas and strategies will be different for both.
Okay, so next question, we have a community health worker in our office. I know the role of community health workers vary between each organization. What outcomes do you expect from a community health worker?
That's a good question. I don't know that we have any specific expectations. It would just depend on really your project and what outcomes you hope to achieve with that community health worker. We don't have anything specifically defined in relation to that. And back to the harm reduction question, I thought too about like for public safety and first responders, there is a strategy about increasing access to naloxone and policies around naloxone. So there is kind of a harm reduction strategy in there, but there's not like the harm reduction category in the second one, if that makes sense.
Yes, and like Chris mentioned earlier, if you have any like additional questions after this, you know, Krista and I here at Sunflower are always happy to talk through some of those things. So next question, would sober housing be considered under RFP3, under treatment, or under RFP4 under prevention? And would you allow for a rental unit, or would you need to purchase a house?
Yeah, so sober living, sober housing, and recovery housing, that's all under the recovery category under RFP3. It's not written into RFP4, so that would be specific to this one that's currently written. And we don't have any specific requirements of it being in any form of either a rental unit or a purchase of a house. Kelly might want to share any more about like capital when it comes to like purchasing a house that might be a little bit more have more stringent review as opposed to something that was like helping with rental costs. Anything you'd add there, Kelly?
Yeah, it would get carefully scrutinized by the board, purchase such as that, and you would need to have a plan for maintenance after the 12-month grant ended. There would probably be a clause in there about not being able to sell the property for a certain number of years after the grant had ended. It would just require a lot more detail for a purchase such as that. And we would also need to know where the rest of the funds were coming from for that house, or if you were able to purchase a house with your grant, with all of your grant funds, just a lot more information. We would just need a lot more information. I mean, but it's something you can ask for if you have the information to provide.
Thanks, Kelly. And then next question, I think this is one of our last ones. Can staff be covered in the RFP?
Yep. So personnel and benefits are allowable expenditures that you can build into your budget. But just make sure that if they are brand new positions, paying attention to letting us know that and how easy it might be to hire and sustainability of those positions, those kind of things. But they are allowable expenses for sure. Any other questions? I don't see any coming in, but wanted to at least just give some time for people to type in some questions just in case they're working on them before we close out. And again, as everyone's mentioned, you feel free to reach out to any one of us. We're all listed. Kelly, Alyssa, and I are listed on the Sunflower website. You can find our contact information there, or you all probably already have at least one of our email addresses somehow. But feel free to reach out. And then Attorney General's office, if you have any questions about opioid settlements or anything like that, we're always happy to answer questions. All right, well, with that, thanks everybody. We'll give you 2 minutes back into your day and have a great day.